flying foxes, aren't they just great? This is a camp of grey-headed and black flying foxes. I love them. They're a keystone species, and I'm going to follow them on their journey. After a hard, hot day squabbling with friends, the flying foxes are heading out to get a drink. It's called dipping. What they do is they fly down to the water, put their bellies in there, and their beautiful luscious coats get covered in the water. Not only does it cool them off, but they're able to lap it off with those tongues and get a good drink. Now you might ask, why are they keystone species? Well, these flying foxes, the sky puppies, fly great distances every single night, between 20 to 60 kilometres on the journey to find food. They fly out over our homes, they find little pockets of vegetation, and they feed on the blossoms, particularly our timber trees. And when they do that, they're drinking the nectar with that long tongue of theirs, and they're getting covered in pollen, and then they fly to another tree. And this is really critical because what they're actually doing is pollinating our forests. And because they're not limited to a small area and they're covering great distances, they're spreading pollen kilometres each night. And the same goes for when they're eating fruit. You see, our bats love to eat rainforest fruits. They ingest some of those seeds, in fact, not just some, a lot of seeds. Some estimates put it at around 60,000 seeds per night, and it passes through their gut, comes out the other end as poo. Basically, it's a fertiliser package ready to start growing. So they're rebuilding forests. And what makes it so important is this. Trees, just like us, don't like breeding with our siblings. So by spreading pollen and seeds from far and wide, these bats are crucial to genetic diversity, keeping nature healthy. And in a landscape like ours, with large swathes of land clearing and little isolated pockets of forests, this is a critical thing. There are over 90 different species of bats in Australia, most of which are the little kind, our microbats. And these characters use echolocation to find their food, insects. I like to call them military insect munching machines. And we have 4 species of megabats: spectacled flying foxes, grey-headed flying foxes, black flying foxes, and little red flying foxes. And megabats as a group are a large animal. They can have a wingspan of up to 1 metre in length, a body length close to 30 centimetres, and they use their keen sense of smell and brilliant eyesight to locate their food. Flying foxes, they're having a bit of a hard time. Firstly, they're really slow to reproduce. It takes 2 to 3 years to reach sexual maturity, and they only have 1 pup per year. With all the threats that they face, from climate change, habitat destruction, and hazards in and around our farms and urban areas, their populations are decreasing. Grey-headed flying foxes have seen population decreases of up to 30%. This has put them on the vulnerable list of state and federal legislation. A key part of their habitat are camps. Bats are nocturnal. They sleep in the day and they're awake in the night. And in the daytime, they like to come to camps where they congregate, one, to socialise, to breed, and by having lots of eyes around, they can keep a keen eye out for predators. Things like birds of prey, goannas, snakes, and people's domestic pets. They have a real hard time. Fairfield City Council is committed to restoring their habitat through a restoration program, removing weeds and replacing with native vegetation in their camps, and most importantly, engaging the local community.
We eradicate and manage the invasive species on site, predominantly a large-leaf privet at the moment. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of these bats are currently roosting. So they stay there during the summer months, and what we've done is we have started to mosaic remove privets, so we don't remove all of their habitat in one go. It also increases the airflow underneath the canopy, so during the summer months there's better conditions for the bats while they're actually in situ here.
Protecting this habitat for this threatened species is also working with the community so that they can better understand particularly the ecosystem services that these flying foxes provide. Fruit bats make forests, and that's something that the community appreciate. They can understand that. So by having a tree planting day here today is a really good practical hands-on experience for people, and we've been really privileged to have so many kind and excited people to come and actually help us look after the bats here and look after the habitat.
This is my cherry guava tree, and there's one thing that fruit bats and I have in common. We both love cherry guavas and fresh fruit. Now the issue is, when these flying foxes head out in their quest to find food, they come into our backyards and into our farmlands, into the urban environment. And in these places, there are lots of hazards. You see, bats have got big, beautiful wings. If fruit trees have got netting on them, they can get caught up in that netting, tangled and even die. Things like barbed wire fences, same thing occurs. They get stuck on the barbed wire fence, and if they touch two live power lines, it's no good. Bzzzt, and it's all over. There are a lot of hazards for fruit bats, and you can't blame them for wanting to share our fruit. If you do want to net your fruit trees, make sure you use white netting, and the holes aren't big enough that you can fit your finger through. And don't just drape it over, make sure it's nice and taut. That way the bat can bounce right off. Looking down to Lulu's face, it just melts my heart. And she's connected with so many people across Sydney, changing hearts and minds. Now these poor bats, when they come into our backyards, into our suburbs, they run into a bit of trouble. Fortunately for them, there are lots of dedicated wildlife carers that do a great job of taking care of them.
With flying foxes, rehabilitating animals that were going to die anyway, putting them back into the population is immensely important. People from many and varied rehabilitation societies in New South Wales probably on average return to the wild a couple of thousand a year. That is huge when you think that a lot of the programs that are involved in putting animals back into the wild talk about 10, 20, 100 even, but we put back thousands. And they do well in the wild. We've got reports of bats that have been rehabbed as babies, coming back into care when they're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. And so we are doing our bit for their species. We have a conservational value in rearing flying foxes.
I'm really lucky. I've been working with fruit bats for over 10 years, and I'm vaccinated for bat lyssavirus. Bats have the potential to carry diseases just like lyssavirus, and things like Hendra virus, you can't actually catch it directly from a bat. It has to come through an intermediate animal, like a horse. The thing is, if you come across a fruit bat stuck in your fruit netting or on a barbed wire fence, the most important thing is that you call a qualified wildlife professional and don't touch them. Seeing my furry friends come into roost, it's really special. I'd love to know what they've seen. Flying foxes, sky puppies, fruit bats, mega bats, with that keen sense of smell, brilliant eyesight, and the ability to fly vast distances. They help nature tick. They ensure it's a well-oiled machine by spreading pollen, seeds, and in doing so, they support so many species. Plants and animals and fungi and more, they're essential. It's pretty awesome to think that these bats are pollinating the trees that are feeding koalas, or spreading the rainforest trees holding the creeks together, ensuring we've got clean water. And that's only a small piece of the cake. There's so much more we're not talking about. I'm just saddened to think that with all the threats from humans, from land clearing, getting stuck in fences, and climate change, they're threatened. We need flying foxes, and they need our help.